Oh, wow!
That is such a bit of cool.
Yeah,
If I knew that was going to be brilliant.
It gets worse. Come on. No, revive.
That was a second revival.
There we go. Oh, wow. Whoa. That's in tune. That is in tune.
Wait till we get to the half revival and then we'll be able to see it. Oh, that is spectacular. Yeah, it is out.
Well, we'll see. When we get a full arrival, we'll see.
I can't see anything.
Here we go.
That's the half. Yeah, we're quite a long way out. Especially number 3. Number 3 should feel the same thing.
Well, look, we're going to have to come up with a method. Yeah, number 3's out. Actually, number 3's come back in. Number 5's out now.
Well, it will come back in if it's way out. It'll go down by a little side.
Here we go.
Is that 4 minutes?
3 minutes 12.
Yeah, so the back side is kind of in place.
Alright, here we go. This should be the full arrival, right?
Like 4 minutes.
3:23.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
That's it.
Is that 4 minutes? Yeah.
No, it's 3 minutes 33. That was the full arrival. 3 minutes 33.
That's 4 minutes.
Well, it's 3:33.
Okay, so that's kind of where it all kind of started, really, because there's a video around there if you kind of want us to finish the piece, but rather than kind of explain too much about it, I'm going to pass over to Jon, who's the composer, who's going to explain how he took what this turned into a spreadsheet was and then turned it into a kind of audio score, which in a way kind of explains what this is doing, but just, you know, it's all about the process. So, if you want to fire away.
Yeah, so just in case you didn't, you don't know what we're talking about, which is possible. Yeah, the Phage Revival was a sort of kinetic sculpture piece that we've performed twice in Leeds, once at Opera North earlier this year and once late last year at the University of Leeds. And so it was an audio-visual installation using a set of 12 pendulums that you could see kind of in the sort of basic state. Without any of the lighting and without any of the music and sound. Just that was us attempting to tune up the installation and make it work properly. And I came in at quite a late stage in the project, relatively, once the basic idea had been formed, and my job was to try and create a sort of sonic some kind of immersive sonic response to the piece, and which I did by taking data that was provided for me by the physicists involved, Ben and Mike. So with the piece, you've got these 12 pendulums swinging, and each one is swinging at a slightly different speed. So, and as a result, they, although they start at the same time, they gradually go out of phase, and then you get lots of interesting phase patterns emerging out of the relationship between the frequency movement of each pendulum. And the way I worked with it was I took the data from that provided for me, and which you can see here. The green highlighted row here is the time at which each pendulum crosses the centre of the piece, if you know, so the speed of each swing, basically. And I've only got a few minutes, so I'll just quickly say what I did was set up 12 different metronomes using a computer music program called Max, MSP, which some of you might be familiar with, and set them all to beat at the point at which each pendulum crosses the centre line of in the installation, and actually, and I derived. So I've got. I'll just show you actually. Probably. Can you put the Max screen? So this is just a screenshot from a screenshot video from Max MSP, which is the computer program I used to create a piece. So I ended up with 12 different metronomes. All of these objects are called metro, like little metronomes in the computer program. Each one set up to tick at the speed corresponds to one of the 12 pendulums that's swinging in the installation, and then attached to each metronome is an oscillator that which is here, which is just creating a tone at a certain pitch. So you've got 12 pitches ticking along with 12 different metronomes, and then yeah, if you press play on that. Yeah. So then that's the basic kind of framework of the piece. So it's derived directly from the movement of the pendulums. And then the next, and what you can hear now is that's not playing the video, but it's okay. That's fine. Yeah, what you can hear now, is a basic kind of structural framework of the piece, which is okay. Yeah, now it's sort of playing. Yeah, you can see where. Kind of. No, it's not. Okay. you can see, and then the next stage of the piece was to take that basic framework and connect it up to a more interesting sound. So if you want to see the full piece, just watch the video. If you want to hear the proper soundscape, I used I converted each of those pulses into MIDI information, and then layered each sound with a variety of sounds to get a more interesting texture and make a more interesting soundscape. And also the pitches are derived directly from the frequencies of the swings of the pendulums, because the relationship between the pendulum movements is actually the same as the relationship between notes in the harmonic series. So for this piece, the pitches range from 68.25 hertz for the lowest pitch, and then the relationships between all the subsequent pitches are the same as the relationships between the way the pendulums swing. So that's the kind of basics of how I put together the soundscape.
Don't do the one.
No, that's okay. That's fine.
No.
Yeah.
Is that it then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of kind of reflections on the kind of the process really is that when we were doing this, it kind of originally kind of started off where there was me and Bex, and we kind of we just went to see Ben and Mike in their kind of laser lab because we were interested in doing an application for CERN, and then inspired by what we saw in there, we kind of went into a space with some lenses, and a projector, and just sort of like just fired some light through some lenses and bounce it off some mirrors, and just to kind of experiment and do things. And then after that, there was Ben got some funding to sort of got £1,000 to do some kind of like dare I say it, kind of like outreach activity. I know, it's true, it's true. And so we kind of got back together with an idea of sort of doing something, but we didn't know what we were going to do. And sort of 6 months later, we'd not necessarily got an idea, we'd just been sat around talking and kind of going through things. And it was only when we went back into an actual sort of space, we started to play around with things, that everything. So after being in the space, after being there for about 40 minutes, we kind of had the initial idea, which kind of came from Mike about kind of spinning all the sort of pendulums, and then kind of went from there really, and it happened in a really short space of time after that.
Good lines and marvelous things.
Another one of the things that, as a kind of reflection on it, is that we kind of realised that when it was all sort of built, one of the key kind of people who wasn't necessarily there but was inherent in this process was the process of a maker. So without the maker, we wouldn't have necessarily had the kind of the pendulums made, and we wouldn't have been able to sort of do it really quickly and kind of have something that was just an idea kind of one day, a couple of weeks later, was actually sort of there in reality. We kind of worked with Umlaut in Halifax to kind of make these lenses. And it's kind of these kind of ideas that kind of underpin what kind of this is about really, and what we kind of want to do next. So just kind of concentrating on the actual process is that we want to put on a series of events that are like this, leading to our play space in September. Oh, this is the next slide. Oh no. Just going to backtrack a minute. In fact, no, leave that. So the idea of the space is that we want to go somewhere that's actually quite big. So whether it's like we've been looking at like a 3-story mezzanine sort of space, it's sort of Temple Works, an old TV studio, and various other places, and we want to get kind of a series of a group of people that kind of potentially have met here, that have got sort of like something they've already made or something that they want to make, or other sort of people, and just put them all into this space for a week, and just as a way to kind of experiment and kind of do things. And we want to get sort of, we've been speaking to various people about funding, if anyone else has got any ideas, but because we made sort of phase revival for a ground, and it was quite a sort of short period of time, we all got paid, but it wasn't about that. It was about kind of having fun and sort of going through the process. So one of the reasons for these events is that we kind of see this as an experiment really. So having a series of these things with people who are going to come and talk about the process, like art science, and have a series of art science and maker talks like we have today that kind of lead up to like an art science collaboration talking about the process. And just as a way for people to kind of meet and hopefully kind of put stuff together to kind of work in this sort of space. So we don't know if it's going to work, but it's it's an experiment. At the end of the day, it's people meeting people and kind of having fun, and we just want to sort of like have an area for people to sort of do that. But in terms of the process, we don't have any kind of agenda. We want the process to be kind of driven by the people who are here. Yeah.
How are you going to get funding for those spaces? Did you say
Oh,
you're showing the warehouses and stuff?
I mean, it's sort of we've been speaking to the Arts Council. They're kind of quite interested. The kind of art science kind of network, but the spaces I think we'll potentially be able to get for free. It's more having the funding to kind of to kind of feed people and to kind of give people a little money to kind of play with and bits of transport. So
for a week. You say for a week.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And then but there's and so we don't know necessarily the best way to do it, whether it be kind of like online where people can kind of talk, or just what sort of happens out here. It all sort of starts here really. We're just kind of open to suggestions, and if no minutes left, is that me?